It was always going to be an uphill battle for Minnesota against this crazy OKC squad, but now they head back home down 2-0 in the Western Conference Finals, and it's starting to feel like they're on the brink of this series being done and dusted. Now, I think we found out throughout the season and the postseason that there's no real silver bullet to beat this Thunder team. I mean, Minnesota will need to shoot it way better from deep and somehow avoid turning the ball over against this ravenous defense. But if they want to pull a rabbit out of their hats, they're probably going to need something more than just that going for them. It is really hard right now to think about that magic adjustment against such a great team, but to me it might be time to start forcing OKC's shooters to beat them, because if Minnesota keep letting the Thunder live in the paint and the middle of the floor, then this series is already over. Now, what we've seen a lot of so far is Minnesota's base defensive coverage that they used all throughout the regular season and the postseason so far, and that's drop coverage. Meaning when the Thunder are setting these ball screens, there's McDaniels chasing through the screen on the ball, and Gobert dropping back here to protect the rim, since the screener isn't really a shooting threat. And usually this works pretty well, but even with Jaden McDaniels doing a fairly good job so far, Gilgeous-Alexander just eats this coverage up for a living. And that's exactly what he's done whenever Minnesota have defaulted back into that drop coverage in this series. It was kinda naive that the Wolves thought they'd be able to contain him if he's able to get into the middle of the floor and control the game, and he's proven that time and time again already so far. And just in case it wasn't already tough enough to handle SGA in drop coverage, we've seen Jalen Williams get really busy against it as well. Again, the screener's defender is sitting all the way back here in that drop, and while the Wolves are comfortable giving up these shots in the mid-range usually, Williams and SGA are smoking them in these in-between areas and kinda breaking Minnesota's defense right now. And the same concept has applied to these Thunder scorers when they're working in isolation as well. They're showing some soft gap help here, but they're not committing enough to actually stop the Thunder from getting 2 feet in the paint and punishing this defense. Again, it's not like the Wolves aren't showing any sort of help on these ISOs, but it's all just moving back into a deeper help position when SGA gets into his spots. I think going forward in this series, Minnesota have to force the kick-out pass with that help defense. I think these defenders need to close up these gaps, and if this shooter gets a look, they have to live with the results because they can't keep getting beaten in this specific way. Like, if they're not going to blitz this screen and get the ball out of J-Dub's hands, then I'd love to see the gap help push up and force the issue on the drive, rather than backing off, or be willing to leave the shooter and show a crowd on these middle attacks that we're seeing the Thunder feast on. Now, it's not like the Thunder are a team who can't make threes. They've got a bunch of capable shooters on the floor at all times, but they are shooting just 32.5% on their 3 balls so far in the postseason, and with a team as great as that one, you've got to give up something, and it seems like the time for Minnesota to commit to giving up the long ball in order to at least try and slow down these downhill paint scorers. And I think they need to apply this to every single situation in their defensive game plan. If SGA is in his post bag, I don't think they should be afraid of sending the hard topside double, the baseline double with Gobert, or just throwing the kitchen sink at him with both, rather than just letting him get to his sweet spot like this and doing it so easily. And that's going to mean a shift in mentality on OKC's shooters. Like, instead of Gobert instructing DiVincenzo to get out to this shooter, I think it'd be worth just moving up higher into the gaps and Ant squeezing in as well. I think avoiding a J-Dub straight line drive is a gamble, but a better one than giving up a 3 for Kenrich Williams or even Isaiah Joe. Again, instead of Randall shuffling back toward the shooter like he does here, would stepping further into the gap be a better risk to take? I think at this point Minnesota needs to find out the answer to that question. Ideally, committing to this super aggressive defense would help Minnesota find more possessions like this. Here they actually do send both helpers to the nail and build this wall around SGA at the free throw line. That's at least forcing the Thunder to divert from that easy middle game that they've got going right now, but it's not going to stop them from going there over and over again. So it's Gobert that has to get up to the level of the screen another time to force J-Dub to recycle possession, and then he's back up there on SGA's ball screen, and then they're sticking to it. They're forcing him to shoot over bodies, and they're not letting him get comfortable in the mid-range. Again, when the MVP has the ball, they've got to be willing to leave this shooter to get a body in the paint, and willing to leave the shooter up top to create these kick-out passes. Because while the Thunder are more than capable of making them pay in these situations, Minnesota is probably better off forcing these lower usage players to make decisions and finish these possessions with their shooting, passing, or driving. And don't get me wrong, this is a risky strategy. The Thunder can and maybe will make it look silly at times, like here when they send that early double at SGA, Minnesota are playing 3-on-4 behind that, and they're gonna end up with someone stuck between the nail and the hammer here, and that's a really easy bucket in the end. But for me at least, I want to see the Wolves just commit to trying to take away some of OKC's biggest strengths. I want to see Lou Dort make that interior pass again and again. I want to see Dort and Caruso and Cason Wallace knock down jumpers for a whole game, because even if that's super risky and a little bit gimmicky, Minnesota are on the ropes right now, and it's probably time to start swinging some haymakers in this series. If you enjoyed this video, you can support the channel in the links in the comments. If not, you can always drop a like on this video or subscribe to the channel to see more breakdowns like this one. Thanks again for watching.